Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of a video for instructors and graders of Schoology courses. This video is going to focus on a little more specific details of managing a Schoology course. It's going to cover things like how to add more administrators to a course, and that specifically is if the instructor or creator of the course and the grader of assessments does not happen to be the same person. If they're two different people, then we're going to show you how to add more administrators. We're going to show how to give out access codes to students and parents so they can in fact enroll in the course to begin with. We're going to look at how to see which assessments need grading, how to view the grade book and how to grade the assessments themselves. We're going to look at how to set up the grade book, and this could actually be a video in and of itself, but I'm going to show you pretty much the basics of how you would want to set up the gradebook. And lastly, how to contact parents. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Here we are at the Schoology homepage, as you're probably familiar with from the last video. Okay, let's go to our course. The course we've been in is under the Courses tab, and it's called Math 101. So let's go there. And the first thing we want to do is find out how to add more administrators to the course. Well, over on the left-hand side, we've been in materials a lot, and last time you probably saw how to access the gradebook. We want to go down to members. All right, members. This involves all the people who are in the course. And so we have Mr. and Mrs. Teacher right here. That's me, that's my account. And we also have a student named Student Mounts, and this is that person's parent, Mr. Ben Mounts, down below right there. Okay, so you might notice that the teacher themselves has a little crown next to it. That means that they are an administrator. Okay, so we have all members highlighted right here, but if we just go to members, members really refers to students who are enrolled in the course, and so only Student Mounts is an enrollee. The teacher is not obviously enrolled in the course. But if you go to admins, this is kind of the flip side of that. This is all the people who are helping to manage the course. So if I were to go over to this little gear icon right here, which, let me go back to all again so you can see all of them. Every person who's in the course would have one of these little gear icons, and if I drop that down, I have the option to remove admin. Well, I don't want to do that. I want to stay the admin, but what I can do is I can add other users as an admin to the course. So let's go ahead and see if I can make Student Mounts an admin. And I drop that down, and there's no option for that. Why is that? Well, because Student Mounts has enrolled as a student, and so thankfully that option has been disabled because you don't want students administrating their own course. However, if you have another teacher, another person who was enrolled in Schoology as an instructor, and they were a member of this course, you would see the option to add them as an admin, and then once you click that, you would see a little crown next to them, and they would have all the editing privileges of the teacher who had created the course to begin with. Okay, so how do we get another person in the course? Well, we do it the same way that we get a student in a course, and that is give them the access code. All right, right down here is the access code. So if we go into our members, down at the bottom right there, and it's actually it shows in various other screens as well, but the access code for the course. And so you would email that to whomever you wanted to be a co-admin. They would use that. They would create an instructor account, and then they would use that to join your course. Now remember, students need this to join your course right away, but you don't need this to become an admin. Or sorry, you don't need this to become an instructor. You need this to join a course. So how would you join a course? Well, let's go to the top right here. Courses, all right, and then we created one in the last video, but to join. So if somebody sent me one of these codes right here, I would go to join, and then I would paste that in, and then I would be part of their course. That's what they would do if you gave them this code right here. Then they would show up in our members. Then you would be able to make them an admin by clicking on this. It would say make admin, and then they would have all the rights and privileges that the original instructor had for the course. Okay? Incidentally, you would see that access code here. You also see it over here as well. And this is the same place that you would refer to in order to give parent access codes out too. Actually, before I go to that real quick, let me just direct your attention to this little radio button right here, require approval. I think in the last video, I had mentioned that by default that is unchecked, and it is. So that means that anyone who has the code automatically becomes a student or a member of your course. But if you want to kind of screen that person or vet whoever it is trying to access your course, you would click that first, and then you would get a notification that someone wants to join your course. Then you would approve that. I generally don't use that, but that is an option. So on to parents. All right. Here on the same page with members, over on the right-hand side, you go to Parent Access Codes. And this is a little bit different. It doesn't just show a list of access code for parents, but rather it prompts you to download basically what amounts to an Excel spreadsheet. So for all your students or all your members who are in your class, I'm going to just cancel that because it will download to my computer. But for all the people who are currently enrolled in your class, it will provide a spreadsheet of their name, their user number, and all that thing, and it would provide a not a 10 but a 12-digit code that you would then send out to that person's parent or parents, so that anyone who has that parent code would be able to log in as a parent and see, at least for the most part, everything that their student is able to see. So that's what you would do. You would download that and refer to that spreadsheet. It's a little more cumbersome. It's not right in the web browser right here, but I think it's probably for security's sake that that's kind of a different way of doing that. But you would download that Excel file. Okay, so we have a teacher who's an administrator. We have a student who's a member, and we also have this student's parent who already got a parent code and is showing as their parent, and they're able to see what's in the course. All right, so we're going to assume that that they have started to turn assignments in. Let's go to our materials tab right here, which we spent some time in before. So here as a teacher, we have an assignment. It's in the math intro folder, and the assignment is called Do Your Favorite Math Problem, and we have an ungraded assignment submission. So over here on the right hand side, it would tell you what you have waiting for you to review. So let's go click on that. And this one student in Math 101 has submitted this. So let's take a look at it. Let it load up. And Student Mounts has submitted it. So let's go ahead and click on Student Mounts and see what he or she has submitted. Recall the assignment was simply to do your favorite math problem. And this could be something that is done digitally or something that is done by hand and snapped using either a camera or possibly like a PDF scanning device. But either way, it has been made digital and has now been uploaded as a file that can be reviewed right here. So loading document. Great, and here we have it. You can scroll down and you can see the file in its entirety. There's some options for showing the file, fitting it to height, so you would see the whole file right there, or you would fit to your width. You can even annotate it as well, but based on the requirements for the assignment, do your favorite math problem. That looks like a pretty complete math problem, so I'm going to give that a 10 out of 10. I'm also going to comment on that as well. Great job. Keep it up. Capital K. Okay. Now this this comment can be a comment to you, but if you want this the student to see it, check Show to Student, and then that would show up when the student logs in and checks their grade. Okay, so I almost always check that because I want the student to read the comment and then go to submit. And now it has been graded, and the student can now see what the grade was and any feedback that you have given to the student. All right, so let's take a little bit of a look at the grade book now. Okay, so we've got materials. We looked at members earlier on. Let's go to grade book. Okay, I've got one student in this class. It is student Mounts, and yet it doesn't really show a whole lot about their grade right here. What's going on with that? Well, if I click on their name, and I don't want to do that, but if I click on their name, it'll take me to their bio. All right, so we don't want to do that, but what we do want to click on is those little 3 kind of bar graph things right there. What that will do is that'll bring up a summary of the student's progress so far. This is very similar to the summary that the student and the parent would see if they go into their end of the grade book and take a look at it. And you'll see right here, we do have this one assignment that we've done. Do your favorite math problem. They got a 10 out of 10. That's great. And since it's an assessment category, we've got 100% in the assessment. But it says the course grade is NA. What's going on with that? Well, the problem is that for this video tutorial purposes, I did not set up a grading period. In order for a grade to actually be calculated, you're going to need to set up a grading period and also kind of establish some other properties of how your class is graded. And in order to do that, we need to go into this tab beneath Gradebook called Grade Setup. Let's go to that right there. Okay. So, a couple different things, and there's quite a bit in here that you could play with. I'm just going to show you some of the main things that you need to do in order to get your grades to tabulate for a certain grading period. First of all, you cannot have any grades without categories, and we saw that when we created our first assignment to begin with. We had to create this assessment category, and that is the only category, and that's what we have. That constitutes 100% of the grade. But if you want to add categories, you would hit add right there, give it a new name like homework, so on and so forth. You can calculate it by total points or by percent, and so it's almost like a weighting, as you could see this right here, almost like a weighting method of tabulating grades. And you can also choose to drop the lowest 1, 2, or 10, however many assignments there are when it comes to tabulating the grade. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit cancel, but you would create your own new categories that way. If you choose to weight categories, you can click that as well, and it will give you the opportunity to apply percentages to the various categories. In fact, if I do that, all right, there we go right there. Well, assessment is the only category, so it has to be 100%. But if there were other categories, you could apply different percentages to that, and that it would calculate the overall grade using those weights. Okay, but let's go down here a little bit. I'm going to uncheck weight categories. The reason we don't have a full final grade tabulated is because there is no grading period established, and you would have to go in here and determine what that grading period is. It would be it would probably be a date range with a semester, a marking period, or so forth. But you would do that in here under grading periods and final weights. That's what you would need to do in order to have a final grade tabulated. Down below, you've got things like gradebook scale. Do you want it to be numeric? Do you want it to be alpha? You have the option to round final grade, so on and so forth. And then there's some other things down below that I'm not going to get into, but there are. I will say that Schoology has thought very carefully about what teachers want, and hiding columns, course overrides, that kind of thing. These are all pretty well thought through and useful functions that you can apply. You may just have to play around with it a little bit to find out if it does what you want it to do. Last thing I'll say is, by the way, on that topic, before you even have students in your class, one thing I've done in the past is actually created, I'll call it a dummy student, and that means it's actually me, but I would enroll in my own class as a student. It would be a separate login, but I would enroll in my own class as a student, and therefore I could actually go through and submit assignments and then go back in the teacher end, the instructor end, and see if my grades are tabulating the way that I want them to. That may be something you may want to consider doing if this is your first time and you don't want to make actual students guinea pigs. You can kind of practice on yourself if you want to do it that way. All right. So this is grade setup, and that will cause your grade book. Let's go back to the grade book. There we go. That will cause your grade book to show overall grades, which, like I said before, as it is, there is no overall grade right now. So that's the grade book and setting up grades. Last thing I'll show you is simply how to contact parents. Let's say student bounce's grade is not what it should be. You're going to want to contact the parent, probably the student as well, but assuming the parent is not as involved in checking Schoology online as maybe they should be, you probably want to contact them and let them be aware of how their son or daughter is doing. So let's go back to members, which is our list of people that are involved in the class. So student mounts is the student whose parents I want to contact. I'm not actually going to click on them because that would simply give me information about that person. Although I could click on the parent right here, and that would bring up their email, where I could email them if I wanted to draft an email. All right. However, if you want to stay within the context of Schoology, you could, let's go back here to our members list. You could go to that student and just go over to this little gear icon right here and drop that down and go to message parents. Message parents. And so that would bring up kind of a little message window. Your child's grades. And not good. There would be the message that you would write. Hopefully that's not the case. But the reason this may be more likely to be read than an email is because, number one, they may not have your email address in their contacts list. And so your email, if you send it directly to their email address, may go into their junk mail box. All right. But secondly, this also encourages them to use Schoology more frequently. So you can, as a parent, well, also as a teacher and a student as well, but you can use the Schoology app on mobile devices as almost like a social media platform, where it will send you notifications if messages like this come in. It'll send notifications if assignments are due and upcoming things. And so sending communication to parents by way of a Schoology message kind of gets them in the mode of using Schoology to communicate and not having to go out to an email client or anything like that. Down below, you have an option to attach a file. This is an option to attach a link, and I believe this is a resource which we talked about in the previous video as well. And then you would go ahead and send that out. I'm not going to do that. But that's how you would contact parents, and I highly encourage you to do that, especially if a student's grade drops below a certain threshold. So in this video, we've talked about a number of things. We talked about how to add more administrators to a course, how to give out access codes to both students and to parents so they can create accounts, how to see which assessments need grading, how to grade assessments and view the grade book, and set up the grades, which you should probably do first. And lastly, how to contact parents in the event that they need to be made aware of some change in their son or daughter's progress. So I hope that helps, and I hope it made sense. Thank you for following along.